Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is Deb Evans, and I'm a coach here at Tailored Fundraising. And joining me today in presenting is Nate Huntley. And then running things behind the scenes are Susie Berner and John Mark Purdue. All of us are coaches here at Tailored. And we are super excited to be with you today. We're looking forward to this next hour where we can talk about social media and raising funds with millennials. We're going to give you best practices and guidelines and tips that you can implement over this next year by discussing how not to use social media, how to use social media, tips for creating a following, content do's and don'ts, and how to engage millennials as ministry partners. So if you've never experienced working with a tailored coach, or if you're just not sure how a tailored coach could help you meet your funding goals, we're offering you a free 30-minute coaching session with Susie. All you need to do is click on the link in the chat that Susie is going to put in there to schedule a time. And during that call, you and Susie can work together to identify what's holding you back from getting more funding, as well as discover new ways that you can increase your funding, including, if you want, to talk about ways to incorporate social media and what you've learned today. So again, if you've never worked with a tailored coach before and you want to explore that option, so please go ahead and click on that link to schedule a meeting with Susie. So throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat button. So this is where you can tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and put any other comments that you want to share with us. The other button that I want to draw your attention to is the Q&A button. So if at any time you've got a question about social media, please put your question in this box. Now we have a lot of content to share today, so we're going to do most of the question and answer time at the end. We'll take a couple of questions throughout the webinar, so just know that we're going to stay on extra and answer everybody's questions after the webinar. So this is a live webinar. We want to learn from each other. So ask as many questions as you want, and we will do our best to get to all of them. So let's go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, welcome. Social media. I love social media because it's a fantastic way to build and maintain relationships. As a ministry leader or missionary, knowing how to engage your current and potential partners on social media really is a must-have skill. And having a solid strategy for connecting with them online really is critical to the sustainability and growth of your work. So utilizing social media as a ministry worker fulfills one of the greatest challenges international workers face. That's real-time communication about what God is doing on the field. If your organization sends physical newsletters for you, it usually requires that they be written weeks before they reach your partners. Social media provides the capability of real-time updates that transport your partners into the action on the field. So while there's the temptation to see this primarily as a faster way to beef up financial support, kingdom work is about the relationship and communicating what God is up to through people partnering together. Focusing communication on what God is doing combined with the power of social media helps the kingdom grow faster. And according to a study done by Georgetown University, more than half of people who engage with causes via social media are inspired to take further action. And this is what we want, right? It's engagement. So our team has spent more than 20,000 hours coaching ministry leaders and missionaries over the past 9 years. And when we talk about social media, the response is all over the map. On one end of the spectrum are those that don't like it and who don't feel very tech savvy. On the other end are those who are active on social media and have asked to learn how to use it more effectively to create a culture where their partners feel intimately connected to the impact. And that leads me to our first poll question. I love poll questions. So on a scale from 1 to 5, where do you consider yourself to be with regard to social media? So 1, a newbie, 2, an observer, 3, a regular user, 4, an engaged user, or 5, an influencer. This is all when it comes to social media. Where do you land on that spectrum? All right, so you can throw into the poll question that's popped up. So a newbie, observer, regular user, engaged user, or influencer? I personally, because I'm still a deployed missionary, I rank myself on the influencer because I can't do ministry without it. All right. Okay. All right. Looks like we've got quite a few answers. And there we are. It looks like most of you came back as a regular user, number 3. All right. Love it. Okay, so today we're going to share ideas about how to, or ideas and resources and best practices that we've seen work for our clients. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and we acknowledge that there are multiple ideas out there on how to use social media successfully in fundraising. So take the pieces that feel like a good direction for you and begin making a plan for how to implement them.
All right, so we want to start with what not to do. It's brief, but it's an important area that we need to tackle. So the biggest misconception in using social media for funding is that it's a fast way to get funding. Now, that's not completely wrong. It can be a fast and easy way to get some money, but how sustainable is a quick fix? So we all want to make it as easy as possible for people to give. So we're tempted to post a link where partners can pledge. Like, how easy is that? But we want to encourage you to resist that urge, especially when your focus is ongoing partnerships. Why do we want to do that? Well, for starters, it doesn't actually raise that much money. You get that low-hanging fruit, and maybe you raise a couple $1,000s one time and you gain a handful of monthly partners, but it fizzles out quickly and people get tired of it. So on the contrary, we've seen that people who are asked individually are much more likely to give and to give generous amounts. Second, we want you to have an opportunity to create a true partnership, one that connects people directly to not the funding need, but to what God is doing. And we want them to take ownership in their part of the work. So just throwing out a link really bypasses that relational aspect, that relationship with you, and the connection to the impact, because the focus is about money. So engage them around a conversation about the ministry, not a link. So this relational approach is going to create a longer lasting partnership, and it's going to make your ministry much more sustainable. So where can you put a link? So the best time for someone to see a link in a direct message to a person is after they've already committed to partnering. If someone has to think about it, don't follow up by sending a link so that they can, partner if they decide to. Instead, you want to stay engaged in leadership of the process, and you want to wait until they confirm their partnership and then send that link as that last separate step of the process. The second thing that we want to encourage you not to do is to consistently beg for more partners. It's okay to let people know that you need partners, or invite them to pray as you seek partners, or even ask them to reach out if they're interested, but this should be rare. If you are always talking about funding, people are going to tune you out. In fact, 46% of people are willing to unfollow a brand for sending too many promotional messages. Another idea that we want to encourage you to be slow to use is crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is essentially that idea of the thermometer image, but on a website. So currently, the top sites are Kickstarter, GoFundMe, and Indiegogo. And while it can be useful in helping raise that one-time funding, it's still not as effective as personally inviting people to partner with a shared purpose, developing impact together. So if you're looking for long-term, sustainable partnerships, crowdfunding is not the way to go.
All right. Now, the big question is, how do we want to use social media for partnership development? And a simple guide is, if it's the easier, safer, less scary route, then it's likely the least effective route. No matter which platform you're using, it is important to be intentional and educated. So there are 3 things that can be helpful to think about when deciding how to use social media. And the first thing is your audience. Who's consuming your content? Knowing your audience will inform the kind of posts that you want to make. And the big thing that you want to focus on is the value of the content. Will it add value to the person's life? What kind of content is most engaging to them? Like we said earlier, it's okay to make asks from time to time, but most of your content should be adding value to the consumer, because 41% of people will unfollow you if the information is irrelevant to them. And then the third thing is the channel. How does your audience prefer to consume content? You need to learn how your partners like to consume information and do your best to communicate in that way. And the last thing is we want to gauge what platforms you guys are already using. So take just a moment and answer our next poll question. Again, I can't stress enough how much I love poll questions. All right, so question number 2 is, which of the following social media platforms do you use on a weekly basis? The first one being the big dog, Facebook. The second one, Instagram. Number 3, Twitter. Number 4, Snapchat. Number 5, YouTube. All right, so those, once again, number 1, Facebook. Number 2, Instagram. Number 3, Twitter. Number 4, Snapchat. Number 5, YouTube. And I wish I could say that I don't use all of these, but I do. I use them all the time. And shocker above all, we already have our results back, but Facebook came in 95%. Wow. And then followed up quickly by Instagram. All right, thank you so much for answering. Now we realize that this is not an exhaustive list of all of the different platforms that are out there. And we could touch on all of them, but we're just going to look on at a few, and we're going to break down the top 2 most popular media platforms and the effective ways to use them. So before we do that, let's address a genuine concern. If you are in a restricted access country, how do you use social media? And the big thing we want to stress is start with your organization's protocol, talk to your teammates, and make a decision together. But as we continue, we're going to give you some helpful tips that you might be able to use in your particular situation.
And we're going to start with Facebook because it is the most popular social media platform, as was evidenced by our poll of 95% of you guys are on Facebook. So not only is Facebook still the #1 social media, but the company also owns 4 of the 6 top social networks worldwide, including Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So whether you use Facebook consistently or if you're new to the platform, it can be a fantastic way to connect with your family, your friends, and your partners. So 3 years ago, I found this really interesting. 3 years ago, 1 out of every 7 people in the world had an active Facebook page. Now that number is 1 out of every 3 people, which is 2.5 billion people worldwide. 2.5 billion people have an active Facebook page around the world. And I hear people say a lot, well, the younger generation isn't even on Facebook, which I think older people can attribute to millennials. However, even though Gen Zers are not likely to be on Facebook, Facebook still dominates the global market with new people gaining access and joining every year. So it's still an insanely valuable tool, especially because 1.6 billion of those people visit the site every day, and half of those people use it daily on a mobile device. So let's talk about what Facebook is used for. Basically, Facebook really is used for mass communication. Each post is going out to the masses. So posts should be brief and ideally have an image tied to them as much as possible, because photos generate about 53% more likes than the average post. Also, a highly popular way to connect with people is by using Facebook Live. I know the Coles who are on this call did a Facebook Live. And basically, Facebook Live is the video stream option that people can tune into live, and then they get to leave comments or ask questions in the chat while you're sharing. And according to Sprout Social, the time that people spend watching Facebook Live has quadrupled in the past year. That's huge. And Facebook users also are 44 times more likely to watch live streams than they are recorded videos. So we've seen Facebook Live really work well when wanting to address common questions or give an update on how things are going, while also having an opportunity to be interactive with people. One of my clients, someone that we worked with, even used it to show how they're going to share the gospel in France and their strategy for discipleship. So imagine what that does for the credibility of their work and how it affects the confidence of their partners and their potential partners. So if you've had a Facebook Live event that has been successful for you, share in the chat with us what you've used it for. And we'll get to that in a minute. Next, Facebook is used for personal communication. 88% of Facebook users are on the platform to stay connected with friends and family. So where you once had to make a long distance phone call to keep in touch with friends and family, now you're just a click away from maintaining better relationships. And you can direct or private message someone through Messenger, and you can even video chat through Messenger as well. For some people, they're more likely to respond to a Facebook message than to an email or text message. So if you've been trying to connect with somebody via phone or via email and you haven't gotten a response, try Facebook message. We encourage all of our clients to go through their partner lists and make sure that they're connected to Facebook with that person if that person has a profile. Facebook Live is also a way that you can create dialogue. And that's what we want to do with our partners. We want to create engagement. We want to create dialogue. So Facebook works really well for this. And so Facebook Live is a good option. But you can also post in a way that it's going to solicit that conversation. Like if you ask questions that people can respond to, or if you do some polls, you poll your audience, or you could create a group that encourages dialogue and community. So we'll talk more about that in a second. But Susie, do we have any questions or any ideas in the chat about Facebook Lives?
Yes, so Jeremiah Carter said he did during COVID lockdown, he had a praise and worship time during Facebook Live.
Cool.
And then I did have a client, he's going to a Spanish-speaking country, Costa Rica, in fact, and he has been learning Spanish. So what he did for his Facebook Live is he did a devotional in English, and then he did a devotional in Spanish, and that created awareness for his ministry, and he saw 40 new people sign up to find out more information about his future ministry.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really creative.
Yeah. See, get your creative juices going, guys. Try Facebook Live.
So we do have a question. I don't know if you have time for that now. Do you want to take, should we put that question out?
Yeah, you can throw out a question.
Okay, so this is a question from Lorena. It says, my question is about security. Because of serving in a secure location, how do you do settings for limiting people? And I'm assuming, Lorena, with Facebook, I'm assuming. So the question is, how do you do limited settings? Or how do you do settings for limited people with social media? Nate, I don't know if you know the answer to that.
That is a great question. And that's actually something that we're going to get to in this next section.
Okay.
The big thing, so be on the lookout for us talking about groups and how you can use the group settings as a great way for reinforcing security protocols. So that's something that I personally do. My wife and I we have a secure Facebook group, and we'll talk about that in just a second a little bit more. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So jumping right into that, let's look at who uses Facebook and when you should post. In the US, people ages 25 to 34 are the most common demographic, with nearly 60% of people in this group being active users. Looking at the rest of the graph that we should have up, you will see that it kind of stair steps down as people get older. But we've seen that shift with the COVID pandemic for older generations as they're trying to stay connected. Overall, there's still a fairly significant percentage of all ages over 17 that are using Facebook. Now, the best time to post is in the time zone that the majority of your partnership base is in. And that's 80% of the US population, and they live in the Eastern and Central time zones. So in theory, those are the best times to base a post for an American audience. If you're posting from Europe, but most of your audience is in the States, you'll want to be posting or scheduling to post late in the evening for you. So it's hitting a time when it will get the highest amount of traffic. You might be saying, that's great, but I have partners everywhere. Ultimately, it is important to pay attention to the specific times and days for post engagement and visibility. And again, according to Social Sprout, the best times are weekdays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., that's Central Time, with the worst being the weekends and nights. That can shift a little bit depending on if you're doing something like what we heard of, live streaming some worship events. Saw that in the chat. Well, Sunday, that's a great time, obviously, for streaming worship events. So it's a little bit subjective on who your audience is and what you're streaming, but those are just the general times that the research shows. The big thing we cannot stress enough is if you're not on Facebook, you really need to be. It is hands down the best way to stay connected with the largest amount of people. But a question we get asked a lot is, do I just use my personal page to keep everyone updated, or should I create a ministry page, or do I start a group? And here's where we're going to talk about those group settings. Each of these have a very specific purpose and advantages. So we want to talk about how that can help you decide which is best for you. That first one is that personal profile that most of the world has. This is what most of us already have. And if you don't have a ton of exclusive content that can't be shared publicly, a large portion of your Facebook friends are your ministry partners, then using your personal profile is the best way to engage with them. It seamlessly connects ministry and personal life, and people stay connected to both all in one place, making it easier for them and for you. Just have a good balance of personal posts and ministry posts. The second one is that business page for your ministry. And that's a public facing page and allows anyone to opt in or like your page in order to see more information. It tends to be an official page of your brand with the primary purpose of getting information out. Some of the benefits of a page, that business page, include having access to analytics, the ability to schedule content, having multiple administrative roles. So if you're a husband-wife team or you have a stateside friend, they can be able to help curate and post up content to that business page. And lastly, that Facebook group. Now, this allows you to create a space to engage with your partners specifically and have a more private space to share sensitive information. A Facebook group is the best way to create that close community. But be mindful that Facebook still has control of any information shared and hasn't proven to be a company with the most integrity. Now, don't let that stop you from sharing your life, but just know that it is a reality and you should still be careful. And be intentional when naming your group. Choose something that focuses on impact and community instead of focusing on your name alone, if at all possible. This is the big thing for those restricted access countries. Private or secret groups are an increasingly popular choice for ministry workers to stay connected with partners, and they are unsearchable on Facebook. So it's kind of like having that hidden profile. If you've gone into your settings, you're actually able to, from the get-go, establish a Facebook group and say secret, and you cannot find it on any general search on Facebook. And it actually keeps it secret even from a general Google search on the web. Now really pay attention though, also with that name piece that we mentioned, of make it something kind of innocuous where maybe it doesn't use your organization name, but you could have a little bit of fun with it. Of, maybe if you're in the Czech Republic, you could say checking in with the Smiths, or something to those lines that it doesn't really make you stand out, even if somebody could try to find you, which it's really hard to. So, Susie, do we have any more questions?
Yes, Nate, we do. Yeah, so one of the questions says, a lot of our supporters have declined invitations to our private group. Any idea of why or how we can better engage them?
Could you say that one more time?
A lot of our supporters have declined invitations to our private group. Any idea why or how we can better engage them?
So my suggestion would be to send out a personal message just over Facebook Messenger, and just say, hey, so we sent you out an invitation to this group. Just wanted to see, just ask why, and gauge a little bit of that. Being as open as you can when it comes to communication, the better all around for creating that community that we're really striving for. So just ask why. Yeah. It might be that they're already a part of a lot of groups and just don't feel like they have the capacity for another. I know that's a response that my wife and I have had for ours.
Or I'll add to that, Nate. Eric said this, I think it's true. Oftentimes they're not seeing the invitation. It's not necessarily a decline. So that's why that personal message really catches their attention, and it allows them to really feel honored that you would want them to join that special group.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know what? If they say no, that's okay. Don't take it personally. Like Nate said, they might just have too many people to follow.
Yeah.
Right. I have one other quick question tying in with this. It goes back to that Facebook Live presentation. This is from Margie. How long do those Facebook Live recordings last? Does anybody know that? Because I've had clients do it, and I thought like a week or so, but I'm not sure. Anybody know the answer to that? And if you know the answer, you can put it in the chat as well.
A Facebook Live group. So in asking how long it lasts, like how long it
You know,
stays.
a Facebook Live presentation where you do, a video presentation, how long does that last? A recording.
A recording.
Mm-hmm.
I've done them, and the runtime, they've gone up to like a half an hour. And
then how long do they stay posted?
They stay posted as long as you keep them up there.
Okay.
So if you only want them to stay up for like a week, that's something that I actually highly encourage, is take them down after a little while, because then they can tend to sort of gum up your news feed if you're especially doing them a lot. So
great. Thank you.
Well, and the other thing too is that it's a good thing for them to stay up a little bit longer after that, because some of the people who are watching aren't actually watching when you're live, but they're watching them later. So, don't feel embarrassed or like, oh my gosh, nobody's watching it. They may be watching it afterwards. So at least keep it up, I would say, at least for a week, right?
yeah.
And you can even title them afterwards too, that make it easier for people to find them. So good questions. Good questions. Okay, let's switch to Instagram, because that's another one of the most popular media sites worldwide, with over 1 billion monthly active users. And just like Facebook, their largest demographic is going to be that same 25 to 34 age range. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Instagram, it's most commonly used to post a video or 1 to 2 pictures at a time with a very brief caption. Occasionally, you're going to see people with 3 or more pictures and some long captions. But becoming increasingly popular is Instagram stories. Stories provide a look into the daily life of someone through pictures or short videos. So these are those in-the-moment posts that are only available for 24 hours. So 50% of all Instagram users, that's 500 million people, 500 million people create and view story threads every single day. It's the top method of engagement on Instagram because it eliminates that need to scroll, and it provides a pointed look into someone and what they're all about. So something we love about Instagram is that you can link it with Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr, so that every picture that you post to Instagram can also post on those other sites instantaneously. And Instagram actually has 58% more engagement per follower than Facebook. So a big part of this is because 1/3 of its users check Instagram multiple times a day. But more and more, we're seeing people comment and message each other through Instagram and engage around their live video platform, which is called Live. We believe that this higher engagement is also because Instagram is image-based. And remember when we talked about on Facebook that people get 53% more likes when they have a picture in there. Well, Instagram is entirely pictures or videos. So it's consistently engaging, which is why it draws people to check back more often. So we highly recommend that you get an Instagram, because it's a fantastic way to connect your team to the impact that God is making through them, and because of its ease in linking with Facebook. So if you have questions about Instagram, put those in the Q&A box. And before we start responding to those, Nate, I get to do this poll. Poll question number 3. How many social media sites do you have accounts with? Is it 0? I don't like it. I don't want to do it. 1, like me. No, I have 2. I only use 1 though. 2, 3, 4, or do you have 5+? Are you like Nate, who has multiples and you can multitask? Not like me. I have Facebook friends, but I don't go on Facebook very much. All right. Susie, do we have any questions while we're waiting for the poll results?
We do, but let me do the poll results right here.
Okay, sure. Wow. This is a pretty even spread. Huh. Okay, so 0, only 2 people don't have an account. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm hoping that something that we say today is going to actually get you out there using social media. And for those of you who have 1, maybe we'll get up to 2. 2 is the most popular. So let's make that jump from 0 to 1 or 2. Hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have some ideas and be inspired to do so. So we're really glad you're here today. All right, what you got for us, Susie?
Okay, so the first question is there a way to post Instagram stories without any security limits?
No idea.
That's a great question. To be honest, I actually don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
If somebody has the answer, put it in the chat. Good, we're a team. I have one other question here that I think is a good one. It's about security, serving in a security location. How do you do settings for limiting people?
For limiting people to a group?
Yes.
Well, so groups are, especially those secret private groups,
Yes.
they are 100% by invitation only. So you can set the limit yourself just by going, okay, I'm only going to have, say, 100 people in there. It's very simple. You only send the invite out to the 100 people that you think are the ones that you have to have in that group.
Okay.
One thing to pay attention though to with that is the administrative roles. So whenever you create a group, you will be the only admin unless you add someone else. As if you add someone else, they're able to invite people as well. So if you're in a restricted access country and security is a big thing for you, I highly encourage that you remain the only admin, or that or your spouse or a very trusted friend who understands the significance of security with where you're at. But it's all, you set the limits yourself. Great questions.
Do you want another one or you want to go on?
Let's take one more.
Okay. This is a question that said, we've had this question a few seminars ago, and we hope we can address it during this seminar. We know that we can link Facebook and Instagram accounts, but on Facebook, we have a way to post things just for certain friends in case ministry supporters and those interested in the ministry. However, ministry posts aren't for those who we minister, and we have them as Instagram friends. Here's the question. Is there a way to post on Facebook and Instagram at the same time so only the intended group of people were able to see it?
That's a great question. The big thing is, so you set the links or the link in Instagram for where exactly it's posting on Facebook. So I have, my Instagram is actually the one that I use for the ministry that I'm in. It is not a personal one that I use, and I have it linked directly to my ministry Facebook page. And it is a business page. It's not a secret group. So you can link it. Make sure that whatever you're doing on Instagram, if you're trying to do that dual posting thing, and it is easier to post something on Instagram and share it to Facebook and not the other way around. So make sure when you're setting up that link that it is going to share to that right group of people. It's incredibly difficult to change how it's being shared. It requires deleting that whole link process and starting over from scratch if you want it to go to a different group of people.
And I'm going to add, Jenny put in the chat, you can select who you can see on Insta stories and Facebook, but that means you also have to go through your followers and mark if they are close friends or not. The answer is if it's linked to your personal page, then no, you lose the option to choose a selective group.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. All right. Next, we're going to jump into those social media tips. So yeah, let's talk about those. And these are general and that are applicable to all the different platforms. And the big purpose of social media, like we said, is connection. Social is in the name. It shrinks our global village and almost completely removes the limitations on our reach of influence. We can use it as fundraisers and ministers across the world to connect people to the work God is doing. And as we shared earlier, it encourages people to take action as well. And when using social media, it is important to create a following. That's people who regularly look at, like, or even comment on your posts. And these are the tips that you can use to create a following. The big thing is your goal should be to stop the scroll. Stop people from just running on by what it is that you post. So when thinking about your content, your image, your caption, your video, whatever it is, what can you do to make people stop the scroll and actually hover on your post and engage with it? Because if you can't make them stop scrolling, then they'll never get to your message. Include photos, faces, serious, smiling, goofy, whatever. We all respond to faces as people. And I think that we can all say that emphatically as a result of COVID. It is so amazing to see people's faces, whether it's just a picture or a video. I'm a huge raging extrovert, so the more I can see people's faces, the more life I feel. Use videos, but pay attention to the first 3 seconds. If there's no motion or action in the first 3 seconds, people will, more often than not, scroll on by. Use extreme minimalism. One sentence in black text on a white background invites response. You might have heard this mantra on YouTube: repeat equals defeat. Keep mixing up your visuals or you will condition your audience to keep scrolling. Never get too consistent with your visuals to get the point across. Now, while you don't want to get too consistent with your visuals to get the point across, you want to post consistently. If you only post every few weeks and it's very unpredictable, people will lose interest in what you have to say. And in fact, 18% of people will stop listening completely if you're not consistent. The optimal frequency is at least once a day, but whether it's once a day or once a week, the key is consistency. I can say from personal experience, I actually have it set out to where I post on my personal page once a day, in our ministry business page twice a week, in my secret Facebook group for partners only, I do every 3 days, and on our Instagram, I do every single day. And that's what my people can expect from me. So, and you can get a crazy amazing following. The third tip is provide quality content. Remember, this is not a place to constantly beg for money. Whether you are providing new information like statistics or new powerful stories, the content needs to be useful to your audience, and it can be inspiring. Add value to their lives. We can't say it enough. By challenging them with new information and spiritually provoking thoughts. You can also do this by sharing other posts that have inspired or challenged you. That's a great trick that some people forget about. Your posts don't always have to be your own. Share what others are doing, maybe even other teammates who are posting about the work or things that are happening back with family or friends that you think might encourage others. This can be a great way to get through dry times, as well as through dry times when you're having a hard time thinking of your own posts. Get inspiration from others. I do this a lot. I reshare Toby Mac Speak Life posts all the time because, well, it's just amazing stuff. It's Toby Mac, hey, but there's just great things to say. And another side tip, start following other people or ministries who can prompt ideas on what kind of posts you could make. Another tip is don't be afraid to entertain. Ministry doesn't always have to be serious. You can still be funny every now and then. It's good to take what you do seriously, but it's also okay to have fun too. If you don't typically create funny material on your own, feel free to share something you saw or read that you think others would get a laugh from as well. I do this a lot with my Facebook Live posts when I'm traveling overseas. And I can tell you one of the most engaging posts I've ever put up was me trying to dance with a group of Ugandans in the middle of worship. And there's nothing, people loved getting to see me try to dance. So the fifth tip that we have is always, always, always respond. When someone comments, shares, or mentions you, say something back, or at the very least, like their comment. People will quickly lose interest if they take the time to say something and you never respond, or sometimes even worse, respond a month later. Make them feel heard and seen, because not responding is the best way to kill your following. Statistics say that if you're not responsive, 15% of people will unfollow you. Respond to everything within a day or two, if possible, even if it's simply liking their comment. All right, so we have time for a question. So Susie, do we have a question?
So I think this is a very simple and practical question, but it's great. Jen asks, you know, how do we find the time to go on these sites? My biggest problem is I cannot find time.
Mhm. I think you have to make time. I think you have to see this as part of your communication plan. So we encourage our people, we've said this before on other webinars that we've done, sorry I got a bug in my throat there, to carve out time each week for partnership development. So this is part of a communication plan. Nate, I'm sure it takes a lot of time for you to intentionally think through, I've got to do this here, this here, this here. So I think just making it a priority, and if you can look at it as this is ministry too, I think that communication is vital for the sustainability of your team. So think about, maybe are there things that you could delegate to other people? Are there things that you need to say no to? Are there apps on your phone that you get sucked into? You know, how can you make this a priority and actually set aside time, carve out, look at it as tithing a portion of your time to fundraising, and that involves a really intentional, thought through communication plan. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I think of using social media as a way to connect, truly connect. If you're a relational person, don't think of it as a task or a job, but think of it as connecting with people. Start small and see how people respond when you do connect.
Yeah. I have nothing to add. That's all great.
Okay. Well, we've talked about a lot of different platforms and tips for posting. So we want to dive into content do's and don'ts. So let's begin with how to share. So text, if you're just going to post a text without videos, you should keep it to 1 to 2 sentences or 40 to 100 characters. Let's talk about photos. So ideally, you want to share 2 to 3 short sentences for a caption that's going to connect your partners to the image. But again, this depends on the image and on what you have to share. So as a rule of thumb, use as many words as necessary to tell an engaging story, and then stop using them when you're no longer engaging. When you're taking pictures of people, a general guideline to follow is the fewer people in the image, the more powerful that image becomes. So limit the number of people in your photo so that we really can see them, because we want to see their eyes. We want to see their teeth in photos. Of course, sometimes there can be power in showing a whole room. You know, maybe you want to showcase the whole space for an event, or, you know, show the size or the scope of the work by taking a picture of a room that's, for example, packed with people in line for food. And again, that can be a great thing. But what if that picture was secondary to an initial picture of a close-up of people standing in line, just 2 people standing in line with their stories? We also want to encourage you to use hashtags, especially when you're promoting an event or a project. So general hashtags like hashtag leadership or hashtag business as missions are going to put your content in front of people who are following or who are searching for those types of tags. So some people may actually end up following you. But specific project or event hashtags like hashtag Adoption Gala 2020 or hashtag We Are the World allow others to share their experiences of the event. So if you can keep a hashtag to 12 characters or less, the better chance of someone resharing your tag. So for any post, there's a greater chance of engagement and resharing it if you can add multiple single word hashtags rather than a single complex one. So for example, hashtag missions, hashtag Sweden, or hashtag ESL are easy hashtags that can catch people's attention who are also passionate about those things. All right, let's talk about videos. So videos are a fantastic thing to upload in order to keep your partners connected to the ministry. So you could shoot just a 15-second video of a group of kids who are waving and who are yelling, "Thank you so much." You know, like, can you imagine how powerful that would be to your partners? So, or you could also think about doing like a video of one of your teammates or a new friend that you've started meeting with, or maybe your small group. Videos are going to make people feel like they're right there with you, so make time for them, but keep them short, anywhere from 15 seconds to 2 minutes. And like Susie said before, we found that Vimeo is much easier to record and share a video message than YouTube. And then there's stories through text. So again, we're going to say the same thing. Keep stories focused and keep them short. So 3 to 4 sentences keeps your entire post visible, because any longer than that, and you're going to see Facebook start cropping that by adding the words continue reading. And if your audience has to click continue reading, then they're probably not going to read it. So while sharing a story is great and encouraged, we want to again encourage you to keep it very focused and very short.
Now, while it's important to know how to share, let's talk about what to share. This is going to be really critical. I saw the question in our chat, I believe it was from Isabella. This is incredibly important, especially for right now in COVID, when so many of us are stuck at home or very limited in what we're able to do. But this is a great how to and what to, even in this time. So what are your personal experiences and your needs? What is daily life like for you right now? The market, traffic, your house, church, especially in COVID time, it's probably going to be more of your house, and maybe houses doubling as church. But and if you only have one time that you're able to go out to the store right now, document it. Help people to know what exactly life is like for you. It's that intimate look into what's going on right now. And partners want to see that. So, and the lessons that you're learning, that's another big thing. And again, this is not limited by COVID. What are you learning right now? Is there a Bible phrase or passage that is just you've really latched onto and is helping you get through today, or has you've latched onto this last week? And a big thing is prayer requests. We're going to say this over and over and over again. Prayer requests, they generate usually a lot of response. And also ask the question of how can we be praying for you? All right, so those are personal experiences and needs that you can share. Now, share ministry experiences and impact. Now, where are you connecting with others right now? Who are you spending time with? What conversations are you having? Highlighting projects or events, and again, prayer requests. These are all big things. And ministry is not stopped by a pandemic. It may seem like it is, but it's really just changed. So what does ministry look like even right now? And we're all looking forward to that time when we're not limited and you can resume normal activity. But these are all things, these are all tips that are not limited by circumstances. But it's an opportunity to share what the new experience is. So what's your cultural experience right now? And what's the food like? What are the people like? What are the holiday celebrations, and even the clothing? Those things are all interesting, especially to people that have never been to where you're at or have never experienced that culture. All right. So those are things that you can share. That's what to share. Now let's look at what not to do, what not to share. That's, again, constant pleas for funding or ungratefulness. We can't say it enough. Probably the number one fear when it comes to fundraising that we hear is, I don't want people to think I'm asking for their money. So don't do it on social media. And that's things like, we need your help, join now, please give. Doing that puts the focus on money and bypasses the relationship. Every now and again, maybe, yes, but you don't want your posts to be inundated with the constant ask. All right, so ministry posts that are missionary focused. That's things like, because of what I did, this impact happened. Now, how does that help them feel like they're shareholders in the work? All right, and the last thing is sensitive information without permission, and that's someone else's name, their photo, story, etc. Remember, if your page is not private, people in your country of service can see it. And we don't want them to feel like their privacy has been breached. All right.
So finally, we're getting to millennials. So between the ages of 26 and 40, they are the largest demographic in the United States at 73 million people. And I don't know about you, but oftentimes when I hear the word millennial, I think, ugh, they get a bad rap, right? Like they just get a bad rap. But they're actually known for their generosity and their interest in charitable causes. I've been super encouraged as I've watched on the television them in action during this pandemic. They're getting, they're taking on this responsibility of getting crops from farmers that would have been thrown away to hungry people. And many of our clients aren't capitalizing on this generation and connecting on with this younger generation. And why is that? Well, there could be several reasons, but the two that we hear most often are millennials can't afford to give. But you know what? If they're the ages of 26 to 40, they are now well past college and they probably have established careers and families, so they can't afford to give. And then the second thing is, millennials use technology, and I really don't know how to connect via technology. So if that's you, I want to challenge you to invest the time that it's going to take to learn, because it's only going to benefit you and your ministry. So hopefully some of these social media tips are helping to give you some ideas and direction on how to do that. But I also want to encourage you to come to our next month's webinar, because we're going to be talking about how software can maximize your fundraising efforts. So consider these ideas for attracting millennial donors and maintaining a positive relationship with your younger audiences. So first of all, like we said, use technology. So millennials have grown up with computers and the internet, and technology is a huge part of their daily lives. So it's better in this case to skip that snail mail and opt for a digital outreach. Email is still a useful option, but don't forget to connect with texting, with social media. Between Facebook and Instagram, millennials use Instagram, specifically Instagram stories, far more. We want you to keep your website, your online profiles, and your accounts up to date and interact frequently with your followers. And if you have a website, please, please, please optimize it for mobile use. If you don't, you're going to lose a lot of connections that you could make with people. Most millennials actually use a tablet or a smartphone to access your online information. So you want to put your best virtual foot forward. And not just millennials, but of all the age groups, more than 60% of people accessing the internet are doing it from their mobile devices. So that's super important to make your website mobile friendly. All right, next thing we want you to do is focus on the cause. Just like I talked about before, millennials support causes that they're passionate about. Like I said, getting from potatoes from Idaho to food banks. They want to support causes, not institutions. And the best fundraising ideas for connecting with millennials are to use stories, photos and videos to engage their hearts and their heads. So they want to know how their money is making a difference rather than those details about the organization. So explaining how $100 feeds 50 children for a week, and then you embed a video in that shows the work in action, that's going to be super powerful. And if you don't know how to do that, Google it, because there's tons of tutorials out there. I Google everything. So try to always demonstrate those results and the impact, because that message is going to be more likely heard and also inspire action on their part. You want to also invite millennials into physical community. Millennials are the ones who have spearheaded that resurgence of communal living, that neighborhood gathering place and gathering around the table instead of a television. They love to be with people in person. So this may seem counterintuitive with how much time they actually spend in the virtual world, but it's because they have a genuine desire to connect with others in big ways. So they're far likely to visit you in your country of service than many previous generations. So consider asking them to come and invite you someday. Come visit you someday. I think that's really interesting. I never really thought about that before, but the fact that these guys are so much more mobile and that they would hop on a plane and come see you is more likely a reality than it used to be, which is encouraging and exciting. So when possible, while you're actively fundraising, think about how you can meet with them in person if possible. More than likely, it's going to take a digital invitation, but once these social distancing restrictions are lifted in their area, don't be afraid to meet them in person. And also don't forget them after they give. Okay, let's be honest. So this generation isn't known for sending thank you notes, but that shouldn't stop you from expressing your gratitude. They also have a reputation for not making long-term commitments, but we know that being part of a community and being part of something that's bigger than themselves is really, really important to them. So if they feel appreciated and they can see regularly how their partnership is making a difference in the world, they are much more likely to feel a sense of ownership in the work, and they're also much more likely to stay involved.
Yeah. Along with that, be genuine when expressing gratitude. Without the right personal touch, electronic communication can quickly become impersonal and stilted. So do your best to rise above the obvious canned response, and really try surprising a millennial by occasionally sending a handwritten thank you note, or even a meme or a GIF or an emoji into your email. And make sure if you have an automatic thank you or confirmation email, populate it so that a person's name just goes right in there and indicates the specific amount they donated and includes a story about their impact. And you want to encourage the sharing. Sharing is caring. Love that old adage, and it may seem campy, but it's true. And millennials love to share. Through social media, they like to tell the world about what they're doing, who they're with, and what they support. So encourage them to share your posts. Ask them to share on Facebook, retweet on Twitter, or put your post in their Instagram stories. God can and has used this to bring new prayer and financial partners to a team. But make sure you have social media share buttons available alongside any story you publish on your website. And again, don't underestimate their donation power. By far the biggest mistake you can make with millennials is to assume they don't care or they don't have money to give. While they may not have accumulated as much wealth as some of your older partners, they still have money to give. And let's remember that as the millennial generation ages, they will have the resources in the years to come, which is a key factor in the longevity and sustainability of the work. There really is no reason to be wary of trying out new social media for your ministry or nonprofit. In fact, something new could be just the thing to get new prospects interested, as well as engage your current partner base. If you want to expand your network, then expand the way you network. I'm sure you've heard insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result, right? So if you're looking for different results, try something new. And there's no better time than the present when people are struggling with isolation. So many people are online trying platforms and figuring out ways to connect because of COVID. My parents, who are in their late 70s, they recently joined Facebook to stay connected with family and friends. And let me tell you, they're in a place where they just got out of dial-up internet only like 6 years ago. So this is a huge thing. They don't have a whole lot of technology experience. So, and Deb has said that her 82-year-old mother has, for the most part, figured out how to use Zoom to connect with her family from her senior living facility. So start by identifying which social platforms your partners and potential partners are most likely to be on and check it out.
Awesome. Well, we are at the top of our hour. We've had a lot of content today and a lot of good questions. If you need to go, feel free to do so, but we're going to stay on. We would love to hear from you just as you reflect on something that you've experienced today. In the chat box, just add in there, what is something that this webinar has shown you that's been helpful for you? And while you're doing that, if you've never experienced working with a tailored coach, or if you're just not sure how working with a tailored coach could help you meet your funding goals, we're offering that free 30-minute coaching session with Susie. So all you need to do is click on the link that Susie's going to put in the chat. And then, like we said before, during the call, you and Susie can work together to identify what's holding you back from getting more funding, as well as discover new ways that you could increase your funding, including, if you want, incorporating ways that you learned, things that you've learned today. So we are super passionate about helping you to build a strong partnership team, and we would love the opportunity to work with you. So again, we're at the top of the hour. It's been super great to be with you today, and I hope that you're walking away with some really valuable tips on how to better connect with future partners. And we'd also love for you to join our next month's webinar. Next month, we're going to be talking about how software can maximize your fundraising efforts. It is June the 18th at 1 o'clock Central Daylight Time. And so Susie's going to copy and paste that link over into the chat box for registration. So if you want to register for that, you can click the link and go ahead and register that, and we will see you next month there. But we're going to stay on and answer as many questions as possible. I also want to see what everybody has put here in the chat box. So let's see, what are some of the things that people have said? So the practical, what to do, what to do, and what not to do, that's great. Let's see. Posting a plan makes it less scary. Facebook Lives, Madison, you're going to use a Facebook Live. I'm encouraged. That's exciting.
They really are so incredibly powerful, and it
Mhm.
works all around the world. It's amazing.
Oh, look, Jen Saylor wants to try videos. You go, girl. And anybody who would like a recording, you can send your requests to Lindsay, Lynsey, Lindsay at tailoredfundraising.com. They're not always granted, but you can certainly send a request to Lindsay.
Ooh, that's a great comment from Joshua Nelson. Seeing some of these tips put into a PDF. What do you think? Something we should do?
Maybe so. I think that's a job for you, Nate.
Sounds good. I can do that.
Or Mary Ava. She's a good writer too. She's a journalism major.
Maybe let her take that one.
Maybe so, yeah. Rivers says, I appreciate the reminder to be consistent with the frequency of posts. Yes, good. And Becky is going to try Instagram. All right.
Looks like Gordon is going to do a secret Facebook group for partners and host a prayer time. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and not underestimating the millennials. I know they're so awesome. Like when I see things on the news, when I see them taking on these big projects, I absolutely love it. It just makes my heart so full and so happy.
Mm. Oh, epistle. That's from Jennifer. And I actually have not heard of epistle.
Jenny's using it.
Check that out.
Jenny Carr is using Epistle now.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's trying it out for her newsletter.
Okay, Jenny, you got to get us caught up on epistle. Oh, talking about it next month. Okay. Yay.
Okay, Susie, do we have any questions? I see that the link, which link, Gabriel, the link that Susie sent doesn't work. Let me work on that.
Deb, it's the webinar registration link. Would you mind putting that in the chat? I was having a time. I couldn't transfer it from my other document.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome. That'd be
yeah, and if you want to start throwing out some questions.
Mm-hmm. So here's a question. I think this is a good one. What kind of content do you share when you're support raising? So when you're back home, maybe from the field raising funds, what kind of content do you share? Meaning in a newsletter, or I'm sorry, in social media, sorry.
I would say if you're back from your country of service, if it's been a while, I mean, some of those things that you maybe missed from home. I know one of my friends, one of my teammates, he's in Indonesia, and when he comes back to the States, he goes automatically to In-N-Out, and he will just be like, hey, first time at In-N-Out in 2 years, missed being here. And people may or may not even know that you were even coming back. So it's a great way to reintroduce your partners, or just inform them that, hey, I'm in town. And it starts that conversation of, hey, can we meet up? Can we talk? And it's just and so you can actually use it as a way of even tracking where you're at. So maybe if you have a bunch of partners along the West Coast, along the East Coast, and we're in the middle, and just go, hey, I'm in Oregon, headed to Washington. Maybe that lets people know, oh, wow, I'm in Washington. I should reach out. Let's try to get in contact. So it's a great way to get that conversation going. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Here's another question from Jessica. Is there any data on what's been most viewed or liked besides faces in photos? Our country of ministry has very strict laws on posting photos of faces, so we're trying to think creatively and still catch people's interest.
So I would ask, do they have, so it's just faces. Was there a way that you could be able to capture the scope of an impact, even by just catching a picture of the group from behind? It can be kind of hard for that up close personalization if you're restricted on faces, but trying to figure out, okay, how do you make things more personalized? So is there an engaging piece, like you were in a conference together, maybe a shot of what you were going over, without compromising some of that that person's privacy, and sort of a workaround. It gets people connected to the impact without having some of that.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Nate. I think, you can approach it from two different angles. One is the need. The reason you're going to a country is that there are tremendous needs for the gospel, needs for practical help, what church planting ministries, whatever your ministry does, what's the focus of your ministry. Give information about the need. Paint a picture of what that need is like from a insider's view. So maybe you show photos of a mosque and talk about just how this particular country believes in a certain faith and even some of the principles behind that. I mean, you can be discreet, but you can cast vision with a need aspect. Maybe poverty is a big issue, and you show a photo of some people that are cooking and the kind of food that they serve because they have limited access to food. That can cast vision for need in a very practical way.
Yeah,
You can
great.
also blur out people's faces. I've seen a lot of people where they have their arm around somebody and the other person is blurred out. And, that's okay to do too. It shows that you're building relationships with people, and we will naturally put a face to that. Just like when you're reading a book, like if you're reading Harry Potter before Harry Potter movies came out, I bet you thought, this is what Harry Potter looks like. This is what Professor Snape looks like. But it wasn't until the movie that you're like, oh shoot, that's not what they look like at all. You're going to naturally fill in that person's face. It's going to be a human touch point, and it shows that you're building relationships.
Okay, here's a little bit of a different question, but I think it's a good one because of being in our COVID shelter in place. How can I use Zoom as a means of social platform and rallying partners and informing them?
Invite them to a group meeting. We've had people do prayer meetings over Facebook Live. Over Zoom. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think the Coles did that. They invited their partners all to a prayer meeting that they hosted together. So just reach out and invite them around a common purpose and a common cause.
Okay. Let's see some other ones here. This is a question. I've heard about social media planning done by businesses. Are there any good resources on going further? That's from Robert. Social media planning done by businesses. You guys familiar with that or heard of anything like that?
Social media planning for business. I've heard, I know that there are companies out there that do it. That is their whole business platform. Their whole strategy that's what they do. They will do an assessment of what it is you're trying to do and the people that you're trying to reach, and they will break down a plan for you in terms of how big of an audience you're trying to target. And this is more for like a business page that's meant to be, like we talked about, far more a much bigger net cast very broadly. That just really is about getting people to awareness of what you're doing. But that's all they do. I know that a big one is social SEO. They mostly do social media or social optimization, so getting like websites visibility and that sort of stuff. But they also, this is not very well known, they do customized plans for social media engagement. They're the only ones that I know of. I haven't looked into it a lot, but that's also because I do most of my own. That's a great question.
Okay. And then this is another question. When you have people signed up for an email list, is it appropriate to get them involved in Instagram or Facebook as well? If they just, let's say they commented on a response card or indicated that they want to be in your email newsletter list.
Sure. I mean, I'd give them the option. Absolutely. They don't have to follow you, but what if they want to? Yeah, at least make the resource known and available. Yeah.
And the great thing you can do is if you're using a platform like MailChimp or a similar like email, like mass email push system, you can put in the social media link buttons into every email, and you can actually make a template that just automatically has them. and that puts the power in your partners and the people that you're communicating to, puts it back into their hands, and they can connect as they feel.
That's a great idea, Nate.
Yeah.
And here's another one. You may have addressed this a little bit, but I wanted to clarify. Is there a way to post Instagram stories without any security limits?
That's a great question. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some countries they have it limited in terms of it's a feature that may or may not be available. I know that that's an issue when you get into mainland China and some places in the Middle East as well, and also North Africa.
And then someone else mentioned macro photos that can be very effective. I thought that was an interesting topic. That wasn't a question, but it was an interesting topic.
Yeah. Oh, I did see something about face masks, and I actually want to comment on that if I can, real quick. Now might be a time where that's a bit of a workaround. I was just reading an article that a lot of the facial recognition software companies that are out there, they are trying to work around being able to get a read on people's faces with the face masks on, but they're all pretty stumped right now. So there's a great chance that you could be able to get the countries that have the limits on faces they actually can't recognize that if somebody's wearing a face mask. It also depends on the type of face mask too for the future, because there's specific ones that actually have pixelization on them that completely messes them up.
Okay, I think those were the main questions we had. I mean, there was a basic one about a hashtag and how it works, but I feel like you guys addressed hashtags.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's so simple, it seems like it should be more complicated. There's literally just about a hashtag for anything, unless you create the word yourself.
So here's one last one. Do you know if you create a link to your secret private Facebook group and share it in an email, will you be able to click on it and go to the group if they're not a member of the group?
If they're not a member of the group, it won't work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as I know, you have to, the invitation only works within Facebook itself. So it's not something that you can invite somebody to be a group member via email. They have to have a personal Facebook profile in order to accept the invitation. And it has to be done in Facebook itself.
Right. Okay, I think that's it. And then I know people are giving great information. Jenny's putting a lot of great links in the chat as well for other resources.
Okay, well, you guys, it's been encouraging to be with you. I'm super glad to hear in the chat. Everybody's responding with one another and sharing different tips and different ideas. That's why I love these webinars, because we can all learn from one another. But we're hoping that you're going to walk away with all kinds of valuable tips. And if you'd like to explore a coaching option for us to be able to continue to help you with this, please let us know. We'd love to work with you. So thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Hope to see you in the next one.